Hi, I'm Sanai Nan, Executive Director of the Community Reconstruction Collective, also known as the CRC.
And I'm Ashley De La Tour, board member of the CRC and staff member at Futures Northwest. In this video, Sanai and I will be interviewing Stephanie Thornton and Sandra Wong from the Department of Human Resources Workforce Equity Division to understand more about the important work that they're doing, hear their stories, and learn information that could help you in your next steps after high school or college. Welcome, Stephanie and Sandra. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to start out, I'm going to ask you both the same question. Can you tell us each a little bit about yourself, how you came to your chosen career, and what your favorite thing about your job is?
Okay, well, I don't mind starting. So again, my name is Stephanie Thornton. I work in the Seattle Department of Human Resources, and I'm a personnel analyst in there. And I've been in there now for about 4.5 years. And my background is I have a BA in sociology and an MA in education. And I've always had an interest in connecting people to resources, no matter what I've done. So I've worked in a nonprofit research firm. I've worked, I've worked in a few places. In other words, I've had many careers, and they've all been about connecting people to resources when I look back. So it's kind of a natural progression for me to work on career readiness programs, because that has very similar skills that I do with listening to people, thinking about what my resources are in terms of my programs, and then trying to connect people so that they can move forward in their careers.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And what is your favorite part about your current role?
So I think for me, my favorite part is I really enjoy talking to people and hearing what they do for the city, because the city, we have over 30 departments, and people do everything from working in the arts, working in utilities, working in education, working on city lights. So when I work on these career programs, which we have career development programs, and then we have the internship programs that I work on, I get to hear people tell me what they're trying to do to move themselves forward in their career, and then how I can help them. So that's my favorite part, is I'm part of that process of helping them develop their careers.
That's fantastic. And how about you? Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Wong. I work in the Seattle Department of Human Resources in the Workforce Development Unit. I started with the city out of college, and I was going to University of Washington and got my degree in psychology and sociology. I chose that major because I have a love of people, and specifically trying to understand what makes them tick, and then how they work together in a team environment as well with each other. So my career journey with the city started in information technology, ironically, working with machines and computers at that time. Of course, right? But it always takes a person or a team of people to work with those computers successfully to make it work. So I got my foot in the door doing kind of IT data entry type work, and then kind of grew my skills and my scope into working again, because I gravitate towards the people, how to make them successful in working with those computers. So as an example, I started the first service desk in Seattle Public Utilities. And I did that for a few years, and I got tired of taking all the problems. And I finally went to my boss and said, let me turn this around and let's get me out of this job. In other words, let me start up a training program for you so that we teach the people how to avoid problems with computers, so that they'll never have to even call a service desk, because we've been proactive and we could teach them the right skills and the right things to do to avoid those problems. Get me out of this job. So then I did that for a few years until there was a company consolidation where they put together all the training functions into human resources. And so I grew into that and learned more about kind of how to teach soft skills to employees, and then grew that into eventually workforce development, taking a look at the organization in terms of how can we up our game in terms of building our employees' skills at a workforce, at an organization level. So I currently work with career coaching with City of Seattle employees, taking a look at the existing skill levels and increasing them, and then also taking a look at how do we bring in new talent and skills into the organization by hiring interns. So it's internal and external view of the same type of thing. Again, I love my job. My favorite thing that I have in my job is the people. That's what really gets me up every day and motivated, because they are so good to work with. And we have such a great team of supportive coworkers and management as well to help let that happen.
That's wonderful. Thank you both for sharing that with us. What would be your advice for students interested in any of the fields that you both have taken and the pathways that you've gone through? What would be your advice for them in gaining experience while in high school or college?
So I would say, because I was thinking about this and I wrote some notes down just because I didn't want to miss anything, start developing your professional network now.
Yes, yes.
I can't emphasize that enough. Seek out people who will invest in your career.
Mm-hmm.
So what Sandra was saying with the coaching, seek out coaches who can help guide you, to keep you accountable, help you with setting your goals. Seek out mentors, because mentors can give you that inside look at a profession or an industry. And they can introduce you to their network. Conduct informational interviews. I can't emphasize that enough. When you have an interest in something, just make that effort. Call people that are working in an area that you're interested in. And they'll give you probably 30 minutes of their time, but that can be invaluable. And you can learn, what does it mean to sit in that position, to do that job?
Yes.
What kind of education do you need? Do you work at a desk all day? Are you out in the field? So you get to kind of get a sense of, maybe that's not what I'm thinking of. I thought I wanted to do that job, but maybe that's not what I want to do. I would say also, the advice I would give, and this is what I would also give into my younger self too, is to volunteer in areas that you have an interest in. You can always volunteer because you're also still growing your network when you do that as well.
Yep.
And I would say keep a journal. Write down, keep a journal, start a vision board. It's good to see what you're trying to do.
Yep. And
it's good to kind of read what you've been doing. Keep track of the industry trends. There's a lot of tools out there that can help you. Advice I would give is get on LinkedIn. It took me a while to get on LinkedIn because I'm not that comfortable with the online platform, but be very careful about your social media presence. You need to manage that because recruiters do look at that. But LinkedIn is a very powerful platform right now out there for people. You can find learning out there. There's a lot of opportunities for you to learn. There's professional affiliations of professional organizations that are out there that can help you. And your network, you can grow your network through LinkedIn. I would say with LinkedIn, you don't have to connect with everyone who asks you. I'm not one of these folks that believes you have to have 500 plus people. I believe that when your connection should be meaningful to you, so that when you are looking for work and you send that message out there, that you'll get a response back. And it's not just someone who wanted to connect.
Right.
So the advice I would give is, start researching now, looking at the areas where you think you want to work, and look at their annual reports of companies. They can tell you what a company has done for that year and what they're looking at doing in the future. And you can start to see, well, is this matching what I'm thinking about doing? Where are they saying their need is? And then take that and then start, shaping yourself and developing your career.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll stop there because I can say a little bit more. Oh, I will say one more thing is when you are out there working, look for what we call them stretch projects. So once you get a baseline of what you've learned, ask to learn something else, because that's how you build your skills. That's how you build your skill set. And that's helping make you competitive
Yes.
for other opportunities. And that's all I'll say right now, but that's kind of that's the advice I would also give to my younger self, as I said earlier. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of tools out there. I will say one more thing. Build a SWOT, your own personal SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. They use that in marketing, but you can use that for your own self, for your own development.
Yeah.
And that's how you keep track of how you're building your skills inventory.
Wow. This is all absolute gold. I have to say, like, as a student, a non-traditional student who went back to school as an adult, I didn't know about informational interviews. I didn't know that I could actually call up somebody and sit down and have an interview where I wonder about what they do. I didn't know that that was even a possibility. And so, like, everything that you have mentioned is absolute gold, students. Please take this advice, honestly.
And
100%.
And people will give you their time when you are prepared. Prepare yourself for it. You can Google what an informational interview is. They'll give you like 30 minutes and just have your questions ready.
Yep.
And just ask I call the 360. And you'll be surprised. I did that. I'm a little shy, but I did it. I picked up the phone and I would get art directors. I would get people, whoever I was interested in. They would stop and they would talk to me.
Yeah.
So.
Most people are flattered if you ask them for an informational interview. So that's a very key thing that I would advise any job seeker in human resources to use as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. What other advice would you give, Sandra?
I support what Stephanie just mentioned. Some other things is to try some new things, experiment out loud. Mm-hmm. Human resources is a huge line of business, and it has many different legs that are involved in it. Mm-hmm. And so try new things. Is it labor relations? Is it payroll? Is it classifications? Is it training? So many different disciplines under the umbrella of human resources, and just be open to learning and experimenting and trying new skills in different disciplines, because a day in human resources is never a dull day. There are always other things that you could do if you get bored in one area. Just like Stephanie said, you could volunteer to be in other projects to help build your competency and skill levels in a different area in human resources. That's one of the things I love about this discipline, is it is wide and broad and provides so many opportunities. Of all kind of the soft skills that I think works well for human resources type jobs is to be a top communicator, both written and verbal skills. And in fact, I think that carries over to a lot of other types of disciplines as well. We look for really good communicators, those people that are concise, personable, articulate. I think if you have and you work on that skill, that would be a top-notch thing to do. Practice your interviewing and your social skills, because that'll land you the job offers. And if it doesn't land you a job offer, it may lead you to another job where you open up more doors as well, as people remember you and they say, we got to keep Sinai. What other opportunities can we open up for this person to keep them in our organization? Take a look at your resume. Again, that's another form of communication. how do you best represent yourself on a piece of paper with your resume?
Mhm.
You know, make sure that that's kind of up to speed and current, and that'll carry you a long way as well in your career journey.
Mhm.
To throw in on that piece too, something that was super helpful for me was having people like Sandra and Stephanie to be able to look over my resume and help to give me tips, because of the fact that they've gone through the process of getting a job. If you have somebody in your life who also may work in that type of role, having them look it over, grill you with questions can be super helpful to make sure that you're putting the full professional package forward.
Yes.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I would also say to that, what Sandra was just saying as well, is I would also create a master resume when you're just starting out. So when you have a master resume, as you continue to grow your career, you keep adding your skills, right? So as you add your skills and the projects that you've worked on, because you'll start to forget, wait a second, I led that team, or I managed this project and I was on time, my deliverables, I was under budget, whatever you were trying to achieve. But that master resume, you'll find you'll go back to that. So you're not recreating the wheel every time you're interviewing for a job. You can see I have these skills. It's your form of a skills inventory where you're looking at your soft skills, how you interact with people, what Sandra was saying, your communication, how you team with people, but you're also looking at the so-called hard skills that you're developing, the STEM side of it, or being able to work with databases. And as you grow in your career, you'll start pulling from that, and you won't have to think, what did I do on that? It's like, oh, you just go right to your master resume and just pull from there.
That is such good advice. And I would also add that have a friend or a family member video record you and do a practice interview with you. I personally was unaware of a lot of the faces that I made until I saw a recording of myself, and I was like, oh, I look concerned a lot more than I actually feel concerned. So I should pay attention to my eyebrows here because I'm very expressive, but sometimes
Right.
that leads people to believe something that may not be true of how I'm feeling. So understanding how your face conveys emotions and feelings is really important to know about yourself.
And Sandra teaches a class where they go over that, where they do mock interviews.
Well done.
Right.
That's super important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yes.
So for you, Stephanie and Sandra, what general barriers have you encountered in achieving your career goals as a person outside of gender and race? And what advice do you have for students who may encounter similar barriers in the future?
So for me, some general barriers that I faced in hindsight in my career were a few things, and it was more my personal luggage, fear of change, fear of failure, fear of success. All of those things I faced and had to deal with. When I first started with my career, I was quite surprised because I always have thought of myself as an average person, nothing special. But when I started with the city, again in information technology, a group of about 4 or 5 people at that time, I get some strange behaviors, some strange comments thrown at me. And when I dug deeper into what's behind that, found out that there were some people in the group who were jealous of my university graduation, my diploma from college, because they didn't have the same benefit of being able to go to a college and get a diploma. And so it was being the new kid on the block, let's take her down. She thinks she's smarter than me. Well, I'm going to teach her something else. She's not that smart. And so that was just a new learning for me to how to bridge and communicate with other people on our team, because I needed to work with this other person. And how am I presenting myself? Am I putting out some airs that I don't need to? And again, it's all about relationship building, is my advice in the workplace. It's how you work with other people, how you interact and talk with them, that I want you to pay attention to. Know your own personal values and stay true to them. What's important to you as a person, and carrying that out consistently in how and what you work on together as a team. Being able to identify what's right, knowing that there will always be obstacles and haters and barriers to anyone's life, but it's how you deal with conflict, and how you deal with those barriers that I think tells other people about your character. So get ready for that and just work it through and work it through with your team. It's not just you, it's a team effort.
Unfortunately, too many people are sipping haterade, so you have to be prepared to deal with that. So before we move on to you, Stephanie, Sandra, what would you recommend for people who are just starting their careers in terms of to deal with people who may have values or may not necessarily gel with them at the workplace? Because we all have to deal with people who you don't necessarily get along with, but we are in a professional space. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think these times, especially where times are so polarized, everyone in their opinion, it's more under the microscope now. So my suggestion is to be open and ask questions. Be curious about this other person's opinion. And for me, again, what makes them think that way? Because once we kind of come to that table together and we're both real and see each other's from each other's perspective, then you could start to make some inroads together on how do we create this relationship together. Is it a relationship where we say to each other, I respect your opinion, I honor it, but I don't share it with you. And we need to work professionally. So how are we going to do that together? And for me, it's typically focusing on the work product. And I am a person who believes that that work product is a better product coming from different points of view. And so you got to be able to bridge again and work with other people to make that product stronger and better for the customer. So that's, again, driving back your communication and your relationship skills that you'll need to work on to make that a success.
Makes sense. Stephanie, do you have anything to add in on that before you jump into your answer to the prior question?
I was going to say about the communication, that's so important because I've encountered that as well when I work with people and I didn't understand. I had one person come in one day and they were just angry at me and I didn't know why. And I said, oh, I just had to stop the conversation and I said, we need to have a talk because the behavior, that you're kind of, I just said, you're out of line. And so when we had a conversation, it turned out she had just had a really bad morning. And she just didn't know how to emotionally contain herself. And so we had to work together. But we had that conversation and I understood, okay. And it didn't happen again. But then on the flip side, I have worked with people where when I had that conversation, it didn't go very well. And I did have to say, you know what? We're at the point where, we're not on the same page about what should happen here, because what Sandra said, it's about the work product. It's about what you're doing. And so we had to just bring someone else in to kind of get us together and have that conversation just to see what's happening here. And, we worked it out, but sometimes you do have to bring somebody in. Not all the time. Most of the time you can talk to somebody. Most of the time you can just say, hey, what's going on? And they'll just tell you, okay, I'm having a bad day. It's not you. Because 9 times out of 10, it really isn't you. But you also have to recognize when maybe you need a third neutral party to come in and see what you can't see on both sides of it. But it is about communication. You'd be surprised. It's your career is going to be about how you communicate with people and the words you use.
Yep.
With that, Stephanie. And so for you, what general barriers have you encountered achieving your career goals as a person outside of gender and race, and what advice do you have for students who
Okay.
their
Yeah.
as well?
So, okay, let me make sure I understand the question. So it's about what barriers have I encountered in general that includes my gender and race, or
Outside of your gender.
outside? For me, I would say I didn't really focus in the beginning on building strong professional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is because of my personality. I'm a little introverted. And also I wasn't taught that, and I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that that's just someone showing you that this is the way, the mechanism, this is the structure, this is how it works when you're out here in the work world, is you develop these professional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, like I said, with the informational interviewing, with the talking with people. So that's one thing that I think was a barrier to me maybe moving ahead a little bit further, because when I did sit back and I thought about things, I said, well, some of the folks who I did see move, it's because they knew how to go and they knew how to develop those relationships with people who were in more senior positions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to I call it hit the ground running, in terms of who do I need to speak to? You know, who should I be talking to about, you know, XYZ, whatever position I'm thinking about. So that was one barrier. Another barrier I thought about, another mistake that I made, was I stayed in a position too long.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a position where you don't see any growth happening, where you feel like you're not being taken seriously or you're not being elevated, you have to sit back and think, well, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what am I doing? What am I not doing? But it does affect your ability when you decide to, say, pursue something else. If you're not showing growth in positions, people are going to ask you, and when you're interviewing, you know, well, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I thought about that, and I said I had a position where I did stay in a place too long. And so, you know, I had to be prepared to talk about why. What happened? And what happened was I got a career coach. Well, that I wouldn't do that again. So I said, you just need some help. You need to figure out what you need to do. So I really did. I went and hired a career coach to help me figure out some goals and how to kind of start pursuing what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Thank you. And so for both of you again, if you were to die tomorrow, what would your last words of inspiration be for your community?
Okay, I had to reframe that, Sanai.
I was waiting for that.
I heard that and I said, you know, I need to reframe that to focus a little bit more on what I'm doing now to support the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I was thinking about that and I said, what's the inspiration? Well, my inspiration is, first of all, you do what you can where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're at now is what you can do to make a difference. It doesn't have to necessarily be this grand gesture.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, you know, you can say a kind word to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I've had someone do, you know, more than once when I was not maybe at my best, and someone said, just a stranger said a kind word to me, and it just changed my day.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, you know, do what you can where you're at now.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think about, in terms of what I'm doing now, working on these career programs, working on career development programs, working on our internship program for the city. And I thought about how many people I've helped move through that program. And I've helped, just in my short period of time, I've helped move 400 people.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that and I said, well, I felt very good. I felt very proud of myself, because I said, so many people moved into areas where they're trying to explore their careers, maybe mid-careers, maybe starting careers. So I felt very proud of myself that, like, the past 4 years that I've been able to move that many people into whatever they're trying to do to move forward. And in terms of other words of wisdom or whatever, how I've supported the community, one of my parts of my jobs is I have to go out to the community and attend career fairs.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me the opportunity to do what I call community outreach, because I get to talk to people about what you need to do to prepare yourself to work for the city.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you said that, I had to reframe the question. And I also had to say, there's just one more thing I wanted to say is I saw on one of my coworkers' cubicle, I don't know where she got this statement from, but I loved it when I walked by.
Mm-hmm.
And it says something simple. It just says, act as if what you do matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, because it does.
It does.
It
Facts.
does. It does matter. So, and how you treat people matters. So that's how I would answer that question. And I had to turn it around.
I appreciate that. I mean, you would have just got an A, but you get an A plus for the extra effort. So let's see what you did there.
So for me, I am going to quote our department director, Bobby Humes, because he has submitted a great testimonial here that I totally agree with. So what he says, dream. Imagine yourself accomplishing great things with those around you. Imagine a solution to the thing that pains you the most.
Mm.
Imagine that others feel that pain and want a solution to that thing you're experiencing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that you are equipped through partnership and connection with others to resolve those issues.
Mm.
Dream big, dream often, and then once you're done dreaming, act. Act when no one is watching.
Mm.
Act when people give you praise or give you a critique. Keep moving, keep measuring, keep acting and dreaming. So that'd be my advice, inspiration for the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. And by extension, thank you, Bobby Humes. He is such an inspiration. So to take it there, because, you know, we are up in Bellingham here. So students, you need to know that the racial conversation usually makes people very uncomfortable. But the fact of the matter here is we are not going to get anywhere if we're not willing to be brave, talk about our individualized experiences. And so to start with you, Stephanie, I wanted to ask about what barriers you faced as an African-American woman to reach your current positions and others you've held in your career.
So again, thinking about that, and because I feel like when I walk into a space, people see a Black person first. So that's sort of where I'm coming from with that. But when thinking about places where I've worked and things I've encountered, I would just say these are the questions that I've had to ask myself and that I would just submit to other people as well. When you're working in a place where you have to ask yourself these questions. Are you being set up for success? And that looks a very specific way. I mean, what does that mean, right? Some things that I've experienced, and I present these questions to other people as well, is, you know, are you getting constructive feedback? Mm-hmm. Are you being included in the conversations that have to do with your work? Mm-hmm. Are you receiving projects in terms of your work portfolio that gives you visibility in the company? Because you should have a mix of projects. You shouldn't just be working on, you know, maybe one thing that is not giving you that visibility. You should have a mix, because that's going to come up at the end of the year when you have to start talking about your performance. And those are conversations that you should be having throughout the year anyway. You should be included in those conversations about your performance, and you should initiate those conversations if they are not being initiated. Are you being listened to? Are you being dismissed or supported? Do you have the manager's support? These are very basic things, but these can be barriers and these can be red flags. And these are things that I've experienced off and on in my career that I had to sit back and say, you know what, that was a red flag. I don't know why I didn't see that when I was going through it. Sometimes you don't see things because you're too close to it.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to focus on doing your job and meeting expectations. But those were things that when I look back, I said, those are red flags. If you're working on projects and you're not being given the resources, if you're not being given the material support, the staffing support, time to do the job, you need to have conversations as to why that's not happening. And 9 times out of 10, you can have a good conversation. And maybe something was just overlooked. But if that's not the case, then you'll have to start thinking about what your next step could look like. Because if they're not supporting you in that, when is the support going to happen? If it's not just a one-time thing. So those are barriers. And it primarily for me, it was not being supported. So that's kind of, and I had to leave. I had to leave.
So as a man, I want to bring male privilege into the space to just say I have been given more opportunities in terms of for leadership and more push, looked in the classroom, all the such in terms of moving into my career. I wanted to ask if there's anything specific in terms of, as a Black woman, dealing with men in the workplace, since we do live in a patriarchal society. I want to also talk about that because I personally, in school and in my career, have not had many conversations around male privilege. And so I would love if you could speak to that a little bit as well.
So I'm not sure if I can answer that question, just because the spaces where I worked, there wasn't a lot of men who I directly reported to. So it's really hard for me to kind of answer that because it was primarily women that I reported to.
Sure.
So maybe we can come back to that.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. And so
You're
to
welcome.
move on to you, Sandra, what barriers have you faced as an Asian American woman to reach your current positions and others you've held in your career?
Thank you. So yes, I believe when I was first hired in to the city, what people thought of me initially was that as an Asian American woman, that I was smart, I was quiet and compliant. And I must admit, I brought all that to the table. That's how I was raised as an Asian American woman. Growing up, what I was taught was that no one individual stands out from the family unit. It is all about the family and the team. And as a young Asian American woman, your job was to be quiet and to do as you were told. And I was a very good daughter in that way. So my eyes were opened when I came to the city of Seattle as an organization where it flipped all of that. And I had to learn by the School of Hard Knocks that it's all about you asking questions and to stand out as an individual to get the work done. No longer is being quiet and compliant valued in that culture. But it took me many years to fight through that barrier of asking questions, raising my hands, and standing out. That is very much of a learned thing. And I probably overcompensated because once I started talking and asking questions, then they couldn't shut me up. And that propelled me into the training world where it's all about talking and communicating and asking questions. But in a way, that was my love. It drove me to that passion to get there. Education was key, but I don't think I've ever thought of myself as smart. I think of myself as an average smart person. So it was a matter of Asian American woman breaking through not only the glass ceiling, but the bamboo ceiling is what they call it, the cultural ceiling there that exists for us. I, like Stephanie, had the benefit of many strong women supervisors that modeled how to be a good and excellent employee, that drove me into different areas in the organization, that got me to where I am now.
That is fantastic to hear. Thank you, both of you, for your beautiful answers. And I'm going to throw it back to Ashley.
Okay, so this one is for Stephanie. In your role in workforce equity, what advice can you give others who wish to assist students with employment in their local cities and counties? And also, what advice would you give for people looking to get hired for these opportunities? So both sides of the coin.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking at that question and just hearing and thinking about it. I think when you're applying for any job, you really need to research the culture of so that you understand what their values are, what their mission statement is, and that should be on their website, because everybody has a website now.
Yep.
And they should be very transparent about diversity, how they handle it, how they handle promotion opportunities. Yeah, that should be to me, one of your first steps is researching the company and researching what they say is their culture. For workforce equity, I would say for us, for the city, we have our information out there. It's on our website, seattle.gov and Human Resources. And then you'll see your workforce equity link. You can go out there and you can see what we're doing in terms of workforce equity and how we are investing in training and how we're investing in recruitment. Those are the platforms that are out there. So you can get a sense when you're starting to apply for work, wherever it is, but if, say for the city, then you'll know exactly what the city is doing with what they call RSJI, the Race and Social Justice Initiative. You should be prepared to speak to that because each department has something on their website where they've integrated that into their department. I would say also, in terms of looking for work, we have an application tips document out there because the city does what they call STAR, situation, task, action, and results. Be prepared to talk about that because the city has panel interviews. They interview by panels. And at some point, you'll probably be asked that kind of a question, that behavioral question. What have you done too? And they want to know, how did you handle it? Set up a job alert. They're similar to a Google alert. So if you have an interest in any kind of position or whatever, you'll be the first to hear about it because you'll have an alert come through your email. A little old school with the email. But at least you'll get to see what's out there. You can start to think about if you have an interest in applying for it. But I would also say, know your value, know what you bring. That's why I was saying that master resume and that skills inventory, and just knowing who you are. Just know what you're bringing and be prepared to have that discussion. I like to tell folks because, it can be a little unnerving when you have an interview. It's just to think about it as just a conversation that you're both having. But of course, be prepared. But think of it as a conversation. You're just getting to know each other. They want to get to know you, who you are, and you want to get to know who they are. So be prepared to also ask them some questions, because I had to, and again, I had to learn this. I didn't know this when I first started, but I'm a big supporter of buying books, building a library. And so when I've had questions, I build a library. I'm like, okay, here's a book, How to Have Difficult Conversations. Because that's going to come up and how do you, that's something I still work with. I still work on. So I would just say pretty much what I pretty much just said earlier is just really understand who you are, who the company is, public sector, where your interest is and what are their values, what's their mission, How do they contribute to the public? Does it match your values? Because if you get into a place that doesn't match your values, you're not going to want to stay there. And you don't want to waste your time.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say with my advice. And I'm sure Sandra has something also to add.
Thanks. So I echo what you just said, Stephanie. I would add a few things to this as well. That in my opinion, a lot of students, a lot of employees, when we ask them the question of what is it of your what's your passion? What are you passionate about? Why do you want this job? And how does this internship or this job help support you in your passion? Because what we're trying to get at with that question is, will you stick around in this organization? Because we find that if you're passionate about working in human resources, for example, then you're going to stick around. If you have a love with people and teams and making things work, that's all human resources. And that makes you appealing to our organization as a potential hire. Do your homework, like Stephanie said. Know what company you want to get hired into. Don't come to us and ask us, what can you offer us? Because we get that question a whole lot, which tells us right off the bat, you didn't do your homework. You should come to the table and sell us as well as we sell you. It's a relationship. It goes two ways, not one way. That when you are interviewing with a company, you are as much interviewing them as they are interviewing you.
Mm-hmm.
So pay attention to the questions that they ask you in the interview. How did you get treated in that interview? Did you get treated with respect or not? Because at the end of that interview, you also have the right to turn around and say, thank you, no. It's nice to meet all of you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to take my resume and go to another organization. It's a twofer deal.
And just to add on to the end of that question, I was curious about how much of a factor internships has on being able to understand how to interview, but really understanding if an organization is a good fit for you and actually being able to get in the door. Would you say interviewing at these organizations first, coming from a high school or a college perspective, helps you to be more attractive to these organizations?
Well, I would just say it helps you as an intern coming in. It helps you build your skills. It helps expose you to what it's like to work in that particular environment, what the expectation is. The structure is more hierarchical. Can you just speak to anybody, or is it a little more flatter? You know, where the interaction is a little more fluid. It just shows you if that's a fit for you and your personality, or if not, while you're again building your skills. So I mean, I think it can ultimately be a good experience, even if you don't decide you want to stay there. At least you're not wasting your time saying, well, maybe I'll stay a little bit longer. It's like, no, you have a specific time, and you can make up your mind at the end of the 6 months, 3 months, that this is not something that you want to pursue.
Mm.
I think internships are a great tool for you to have as a student to experiment in terms of what is it involved in to be in a professional environment. For us, we model our internship hiring processes, including the interviews, as kind of a mini rehearsal for our regular jobs that we have in the city. So we try to model, in other words, the same steps, the same types of questions, just framed a little bit differently for internships, as you would experience if you're applying for a real life full-time regular job once you've graduated from school opportunity. So it gives you a nice little taste of trying out new things and seeing how they fit for you and getting you ready for the professional world as well. Can you handle it? Can you deal with it? Do you like it? It's all a part of your career journey and trying out new things.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely. I'm pro internship as well, just for the record. So Stephanie, is there any specific advice that you would like to offer to other Black women or men in their career journeys?
You know, my advice would be pretty much it's like stay curious, stay open. If you're studying to say be an engineering student, if you're an engineering student or an accounting student or a lawyer, you know, you can join the regular professional organizations, but you can also, you know, join maybe affinity groups, so you can diversify your pool. Because you know, we're talking about networking. We're talking about building your network, and network is just client, business relationships, friendships. So you're just expanding your network. So as you grow your career, you can reach out to these folks when you have a question, if they have a question to you, because it's a two-way street. And you help each other. So I would just say, just continue to grow your network, no matter who you are. But I think as a person of color, you can also seek out other organizations that support people of color to help. Yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you. And then moving over to Sandra, in your role in workforce equity, what advice can you give to others who wish to throw successful networking events?
So to me, the key to a successful networking event is all in the planning of it. Be really clear on what are the goals of your networking event. What are you trying to achieve for the participants at the end of that event? Because that will drive who you invite in on this event, and your speakers, and your exercises, and your structure of that event that makes it all key. But that will take up all of your time to develop that. But it is well worth it to do that work up front, because by the day of the event, you will have it all laid out, ready to go and scripted, so to speak, if you have really good goals that you start off with.
Yes, 100%. I know that you already touched on this a little bit a moment ago, but in your role in workforce equity, what advice would you give to those who wish to employ interns seeking practical work experience? And also, what advice would you give for people looking to get hired for these opportunities?
So my advice would be apply, apply, apply. I think so many of our potential applicants, they read our job descriptions and they say, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. So I'm not going to waste my time or their time to apply. And my plea is, don't do that. Even if it sounds half interesting to you to do that internship, apply. You never know what the competition looks like or if the hiring manager's needs change. And so you need to apply. Don't make assumptions, apply. And if you're lucky enough to get an interview, but you don't get the job offer, then ask why. Go back to the interview panel and ask them for their feedback, because it's all about continuous improvement for yourself. How can I interview better for the next time? That you use that as an opportunity to learn and to grow for your next opportunity, because that's where you're going to get the job offer.
Yeah, I agree with what Sandra said, is you have to continue to apply for positions, because you just never know. And we don't know with the pool each time, we don't know what the pool is going to look like. So you just, it's work to look for work,
Mhm.
but you have to keep going. You have to just keep applying and understand again what they're asking you when you're reading the job postings. What are they asking for? You don't have to be 100%, and I think sometimes we make that mistake of thinking that we have to be 100 or 110%. It's like, just do your best, apply, and when you submit the cover letters, please make sure you're addressing the job, that you're being a little specific. That's why your cover letter is the opportunity to be a little more specific, and to call out your skills instead of being generic.
Mm,
And people read those.
yes.
If they ask you for a cover letter, don't ignore it. They're asking for a reason. So just read the job posting, make sure you're answering the questions to the best of your ability. Give us the cover letter, your resume, and yeah, I would say be agile and be flexible, because that's in the day of COVID, there are opportunities out there. You just have to research what industries are hiring.
Yeah.
There are industries that are hiring. I mean, if you look, you can go into what they call the BLS.gov, Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov, the occupational handbook. That's online. That's a resource. That's a tool out there. King County WorkSource has a tool out there. They have a lot of tools out there that can help you. One called Resume Builder. They have workshops. So, I mean, there are tools out there to kind of help support you as you are, job searching. But like I said, it's a job to look for a job. Because when I did that, I had to really hunker down, and I said, you got to dedicate time to it, and be open, and just know what industries are hiring and how that can align with what you're doing, what you're studying, and what you're trying to do. And I'm going to say this: if for some reason you have to take a job because you have to pay the bills, that does happen. Make sure you stay invested in your professional organizations, because that is your network.
Yep.
And then you let folks know. That's when LinkedIn comes in. You let people know, I am looking. I tell people, like Sandy was saying, I'm kind of a quiet person, but when I'm looking for work, I'm not quiet. I'm telling everybody, this is what I'm looking for. I have my elevator speech. This is what I'm looking for. If you can direct me to someone else who might be able to give me some information to talk to, you have to continue to keep that line of communication open, because people don't know if you don't tell them.
Mhm. Absolutely. Is there any specific advice that you'd like to offer other Asian women or men in their career journeys?
Again, I think it goes back to just being open and flexible and applying. It's true that to get a internship or a job is a job in and of itself. So treat it as such. Have a set time structure around your day where you're working on your resume, and commit to applying to many different types of opportunities, and working your professional network, calling other people, having a virtual coffee or tea with them, keeping connected and ready to go for your next opportunity is what you need to focus on. So keep true to that. Know thyself really well as well. Know your values. Know what you're good at. Know your brand. It's as much knowing what you're good at as well as what you're bad at as well. Both are equally important that you need to pay attention to in your job search. If you had to build your ideal job, what would it be, with who and why? Knowing that up front, and then targeting those organizations that have those values and does that type of work will land you on a successful career journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Sanai, do you want to ask our final question?
Yeah. So is there something else you'd like to share that we didn't ask? for both you, Sandra and Stephanie?
I would say follow your instinct.
Mm,
If you go into a situation and it doesn't feel right, there's something telling you that for a reason.
yes.
That was one thing that I would say. And I would say also, if you can, what I said earlier, really develop the people who will invest in you. Develop that social network of people, because you'll have all sorts of people in your inner circle, maybe your outer circle, but identify those people and they will follow you through your career. But I can't emphasize that enough, because I feel like if I had had that earlier, then that would have helped me kind of settle down some things that were in my mind. I'm like, I'm not sure if I should do this, if I should do that. Then you go to your coach.
Yes.
That's when you go to your coach and you have that conversation and you bounce those ideas off your coach,
Mhm.
or you seek out a mentor,
Yes.
someone who can mentor you. It's like, what skills should I be looking at? Should I be adding on to? Here's a conversation I can have with this person who can tell me, they can show me their career path and how they got from point A to point B and what they had to do. And maybe some of the obstacles that they encountered and how they address those obstacles. Because you're gonna, like I said, I've had many careers, but I've had a broad skill set that I brought with me, which is, soft skills, the project management, the teaming, the communication skills, just the interpersonal skills, your emotional maturity.
Mhm.
There's things that you bring, and I think people respect that, So that would be my advice. I had to stop and I had to reflect, and I took some time off, and I got a coach,
Mm.
because I said, I need some support here. So know when you need help and ask for it.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Sandra, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, so for me as an Asian American woman, my suggestion is to be the change that you want to see in the world. For me, when I started the work, and even now a lot of times, I have to physically look around the room and realize that I'm the only Asian American woman at this table. And as such, what a great honor. But at the same time, it's kind of a weight where I want to be able to open the doors for other future Asian American women to follow in my same footsteps. So you got to be a good role model, Sandra, and speak up and ask questions and be curious so that others could see that and model it for themselves for their future as well.
Mm. So good, both of you.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for your time, wisdom, and advice today, and for kicking us off in our workforce development series.
Yeah.
We're wishing you both peace and love and a wonderful rest of the day.
Mm.
Thank you.
It was an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.